Hello, this is Mr. Craig, and today I want to discuss how to make graphs in Google Sheets. Let's get started. All right, so each of you will get a set of data, and this data is going to be special for each of you, so you're all not going to get the same information here. And what I want you to do is to build a chart or so that you can actually have this information to make some graphs. And I put up some commands up here that I'm going to type in just to expedite the process so you don't have to use your calculator to type things in. So the time is pretty straightforward. What you want to do there is carry this time over, and we're going to build a chart so that you can make the graphs and pull the data right from the graphs itself. So to give it a command line, and I'm not sure if many of you have used this command line up here, the FX thing, but what I want to do is I want to transfer, and I know you could probably just copy and paste and be happy with that, but that's not very romantic. So to get the full effect of the spreadsheet, what you want to do is make this cell worth a value. So you put the equal sign, and that's what this function will do for you. And we're going to make it the cell, so E6. So E6. And when you type that in, then the time pops up. Now I'm going to make this centered because I don't like it over there to the side like that. By doing that, now this cell right here that has the 14.46 in it actually is equal to another cell. Now I could simply copy and paste each one of those down, and Google Sheets would carry this information. But if I click right here and drag it down, it automatically fills in that information for me. So I don't have to do a copy and paste. So right now I have my time in this table that I want to create. And I'm going to go ahead and give that a color here just so we can see that. The concentration, same thing over here. You could very easily just copy and paste that information over here, but there's no fun in that. So again, we're going to highlight this cell. So this is C6. That's what I have up there, C6. So put the equal sign in there and C6, and that puts in the value for what we have there. Now again, I'm not sure why it doesn't want to be centered, but we'll make it centered. And do the same thing. Click on that. So notice how it goes to an X and drag it down, and it automatically fills that information in. So we have the same information there. Now, this is where typing in the commands really gets helpful in being able to expedite or speed this process up. So I want to take the natural log of the concentration of A. So we can simply do this command up here. So type in equal ln and use parentheses, and I'm going to choose this cell back here. So I want to use this concentration. So that's why I'm doing C6. So C6, and of course, close the parentheses and hit enter. Now you'll notice that that is a very big value. That's probably a little more information than we need. So I'm going to make it 4 sig figs. You could make it 5 sig figs if you wanted. And let's go ahead and center that up again. So now we've got it nice and centered. Same thing, instead of copy and pasting, grab that, drag it down, boom, we've got our values in there. Let's do the same thing for this, the inverse of the concentration of A. So equal sign, and it's super simple. Just do 1 divided by, and again, the cell is C6. So C6, and then hit your enter. And again, that value's pretty big, so let's give it 4 sig figs here. Get out of there. And let's go ahead and center this up. There. And same thing. Go ahead and then grab it and pull it down. And boom, got our information. Same thing with B. So our cell for our concentration of B is D6. So equal D6. Hit it. Center that up. Grab it. Drop it. How fun is that? And then come over here, and we're going to do the natural log again. So equal ln of, again, this cell, D6. So D6 gives you a value. Come back, drag it down, voila. Also, let's shorten that up. Yeah, that'll work. And then we'll go ahead and center that. And then the last one, equal 1 divided by D6, gives you a value. Grab it, drag it, voila. And let's center it, just for aesthetics, and shorten. All right, now you have your graph created. Or I'm sorry, your table created. One thing I want you to know is that we're going to be doing a comparison of time to concentration, natural log of the concentration, the inverse of the concentration. And in some cases, we want the concentrations to be the same or unchanging, so we want to try to get our graph. So I like to highlight the information that doesn't change. And that just means I'm not gonna worry about that information when I get ready to draw my graphs. So if it's highlighted, I'm gonna steer away from that information. All right, so now we have our table set up here. All right, now that we have our chart set up, let's make some graphs. All right, so now that we have our chart, what we're going to do is we're going to make a total of 6 graphs. So that's one reason why I wanted to have the chart made up already pre-made here. And I'm going to go ahead and make it a nice little grid-like thing there for you. But the first graph that I'm going to do is going to be a concentration of A versus time. So now that I have all the information here, I'm going to highlight the time and the concentration of A. Again, I'm not going to pick these points that don't change along here. So I have my first set of data highlighted. Now I'm going to come over here to this box that says Insert Chart and click on that. And the default is a column chart. We don't want a column chart. We actually want a scatter chart or a scatter plot. So we'll click on the scatter. And it gives us something kind of funky looking. So I'm going to make that a little smaller and get it out of the way so we can actually see what's happening here and move it over here. So a couple things that I'm going to do is I'm going to change this so that we only have one set of data. In other words, right now it has time and concentration of A. No, we don't want that. We don't want to do that at all. And all we have is the time is actually, I think it's the time. Yeah, the time, because we have 44.8 and 8.71. So it's going to max out at 50. So the time is along the y-axis. Well, we want the concentration along the y-axis. Remember, it's the concentration versus time. So if you come over here and where it says use G as labels, click on that. And what that does is it flips the information and it focuses all the data points in one particular area. So it combines the two. Now, the next thing that we want to do is actually make sure that we have a good title up here. So once I clicked in this area here, you'll notice that this popped up. I want you to make sure that you label every single one of your graphs. Don't just create a graph and hope that people know what you're talking about. So this first graph is going to be the concentration of A versus time. And I don't care if you highlight it, if you make it bold, or you change the type of font. Nobody cares about that. Just make sure that you label it. So we're going to, we actually have our first graph completed here. And this is concentration. And I haven't figured out how to put text over here yet. Yeah, I'm not able to see how to treat labels as text, maybe. Nope, don't want to do that. That messes everything up. So we're going to treat it as the concentration of A is along the y-axis and time in seconds is along the x-axis. So we've completed our first graph. I'm going to move it off to the side here and actually make it just a little bit smaller. And there's a couple things that we can do with that graph. If you see these 3 dots right here, if you click on that, it gives you some options. You can actually move this to its own sheet or copy the chart, which I'll do here in a second. But if you want to, for the ease of printing, and I'll do this at the end of the video, move it to its own sheet. But let's get the 6 graphs created right now. So right now I want to click on Copy Chart. So if you click on that, it puts it into memory. So now what you need to do is do a Control V or right click on your mouse and paste. So now I have a second graph from exactly like this one that I just created. Come over here, highlight it, get your 3 dots, click on that, and we want to edit the chart. And what's going to happen is this information is going to pop up again. That's fantastic, except now our graph is going to be this next one, the natural log of A. So if we come over here, type in ln of A, so that shows up there, but that data does not represent or reflect our natural log of A. So we want to grab the data that's in this column right up in here. So what I want to do, come back over here and click Edit. I'm going to come up here to where it says Data Range. And this is where it gets very, very particular. So I want to keep the time, but I don't want to have any of the data points for the concentration of A, and I want to just collect the natural log of A versus time. So what that means is I'm going to change this H to a G. So now I'm focusing only on this column right here. Then I want to hit a comma. And that's going to tell the program that we're going to pick a different column. Well, I want to use this column here, and this happens to be I, the letter I, 5, or I'm sorry, I5. Yeah, it says I5. So we're going to click on I5 and colon I10. By doing that, now that picks just these columns here. And so by clicking on that, hit return. Whoa, look at that. Now we've got our graph, and I'm not going to tell you what that represents, but we do have our next graph. So it has these data points. So again, 1.376. So yeah, it's a little bit below that. I'm not sure if it actually tells you what that value is. Doesn't look like it does, but oh well. So the range is great. All right, so we still have in our memory the first graph. So I'm going to right click again and hit paste. And so now I've got the third graph, except now I want to do it for the inverse of the concentration. So click on there. Let's actually, you got to edit it, sorry. So click edit, and then here in the table, whoop, right there, scoot it over, 1 space divided by, and there we go. Now we've got that. Okay, so that you can actually, I'm going to close that up so you can see that now the name is the inverse of A versus time. Now that's, again, this data that I have currently right here is this time in this column of concentration. So we need to edit that and change it. So just like with the other chart, again, change this to focus on only the first column, the time column. And now again, so that's our first column. We're going to hit a comma. And then we're going to do J5, because we're in column J here. So J5 colon J10. And then by doing that, voila. It gives us a nice graph. Here, let's go ahead and exit out of that. So again, it gives us our information. So our largest inverse value is 2.778, very close to 3. Our smallest one is like 0.225. Yeah, so right around here. So there we have our first 3 graphs for A. All right, I'm going to move these down. All right, now with these completed, let's go ahead and make the B graphs. Now, what you may not have noticed is I've changed the data over here for B because there were a few discrepancies there. So same thing, let's go ahead and actually I'm going to like highlight all of this area here. And that might seem kind of funky, but it's probably a little quicker. So, and then I'm going to take these 3 columns out. So once I've highlighted those areas, because I want to do the B's now, and I don't want to do anything that's repetitive here. So click on Insert Chart. And again, we come up with the default, which is your column chart. Go down to Scatter. And also, let's make this a little smaller here. So, whoops, grab it. Okay, and bring her on down. Okay, now keep in mind, I want to keep the G column. So the G column is going to be my x-axis. That's not going to change. And the range falls from G11 through G15, which is perfect. The H, I don't want the H column, so I'm going to remove that one. The I column, I also do not want to have in there. So I11 through I15, click on that and remove it. The J column, also I do not want to have in there, so I will remove it. By doing that, the columns that I have remaining, and I want to use the 11 as a header, so now I have a graph here. But I do not have a title, so let's customize that by coming over here to Customize, Chart, and Access Title. So we need to click in there that this is concentration of B versus time, which again is in seconds. Oops, seconds. And again, my default will be go middle. I'll make it bold. And there's the first graph. Okay. So same thing. Let's move her on over. Actually, I'll make it a little smaller here because we're really not going to do a whole lot with that right now. And I don't want to copy any of the A graphs down here. That doesn't make any sense to do that. So I'll copy the B because it has that information already started for us. So let me click on there, and let's copy this chart, and then come over here and right click, paste, so I get my next chart with the B's. Because I'm trying to expedite the process a little bit by keeping the time here, so I don't have to change more than one column. So click on Edit Chart, come over here. So I'm going to keep that G11 to G15. That is solid. But now I want to work, let's scoot this over so we can actually see. I'm going to work with the L column. So L11, so change that K to an L, and that K to an L. And by doing that, let me click here, boom. It gives us another graph. But I do need to edit the title. So let's come back up here. And this is, the L column is your inverse, natural log. The natural log of the concentration B versus time. So we have our chart made there. Again, right click, paste, work on our last graph here. Again, let's edit the chart. So the first thing I want to do is do the inverse. So 1 divided by that. Also, now we come up to setup. So we're working with the M as in Mary column. So the G11 through G15 stays the same. M, hit enter. And now we've got a nice little chart there. All right, so now we have our 6 graphs created. That technically is the hard part. However, you are going to need to print these 6 graphs off. I'm actually going to close that one out. You will need to print these 6 graphs off. So probably wouldn't be a bad idea to come up here and do this for each of those graphs by clicking on the 3 dots and move this to its own sheet. By doing that, it now gives you a nice graph. And the label here, you might need to edit the chart. I don't know if we can like customize the title, make the size a little bigger. So maybe, I don't know what 20 is. We'll see what 20 is. Didn't look like it changed much. Let's go 30. Oh, there we go. So that gives us a nice cleaner looking graph. So when you get ready to print that out, I'm sure it'll be able, you can either download, I don't see where you can, don't click on delete. I don't see where you can print it, but I'm sure that by downloading the chart, you'll be able to print it that way. So there's your first chart. And the reason why it says chart 3 is because during trial and error. I already made 2 of those, so don't worry about that. Go back to the sheet and notice that it's gone. So same thing here. Click on the next one, move to its own sheet. Same thing. I think that we had the font for this, so customize the size. I think I made it like a 30 just for that. So there's your chart 3 and chart 4. So we have our natural log. Do the same thing with the other ones. Move it to its own sheet. Change the size, etc., etc. All right, so once you have all of these graphs created, okay, that's the hard part. Now you have to figure out what each of these graphs represent. I do not want you to try to connect the dots by using Google Sheets, because if you do that, it's going to give you some weird lines, because this is a scatter plot and the data points are not necessarily in order. I do not want you to draw a curve on these. However, what I would like for you to do is, wherever there's a slope, I want you to get a straight edge, a ruler, and draw the slope so that we can see it. Okay. Print off all 6 of your graphs, and then I also want you to copy the data table, print that off as well, so the data table that you created. If you want to include the data that I gave you, that's fine, but you have to realize that all of that information is enclosed from what I did there. So how you make up your chart is fine, but the graphs, I want to have those graphs printed off. In the instructions, I gave you explicitly how to place the graphs in your lab notebook, and then the post-lab questions, be sure you answer that. I hope this video was helpful.